It was hot. Not just summer in the suburbs. Hot. Hell's driveway hot. I had been in the garage for 3 hours, swimming through decades of junk, sweat dripping down the back of my neck, like the ghost of a lazy plumber. I paused, kneeling, on a box labeled XMS 1997, which had apparently become a nesting ground for dust bunnies and dead batteries. I pried it open, hoping for documents, and not another tangle of glittered angels and broken hopes. Mom, adopted mom, had been dead 4 days. Dead. Just like that, like a magic trick gone wrong. 1 minute she was frying bacon, the next she was lying face down on the linoleum, with Judge Judy yelling in the background. The grief hadn't hit properly yet. It had sort of peeked through the window, decided I was too busy, and wandered off. I'd cried a bit, cursed at God, gravity, cholesterol. But mostly, I'd just been sorting through boxes and answering calls from her yoga friends with voices like wind chimes and concern as shallow as a kiddie pool. So far, I'd found 7 Tupperware lids without bottoms, 5 pairs of novelty socks, and a sealed VHS tape labeled "Do not watch until after my death," which was now staring at me from under a rusted wrench, like it knew something I didn't. And then I heard them, the clack, clack, clack of kitten heels on pavement, like a miniature horse parade. I turned, and there they were, Karen and Deborah, 2 pillars of our HOA, and the reason I had developed a twitch in my left eye during adolescence. They stood at the edge of the garage, like vultures who had accidentally wandered into a grief counseling session. "Sweetheart," Karen said, clasping her hands like a preacher about to ask for donations. "We are just so sorry for your loss." Deborah nodded, her expression somewhere between mild constipation and professional sympathy. "Your mother was so beloved in the neighborhood, just the kindest soul." I stood up slowly, brushing sawdust off my knees. "Thank you," I said. It's been a lot." Karen stepped forward, her perfume hitting me like a lavender uppercut. "Well, we just wanted to come by, offer our condolences, and let you know we're here for you. Anything you need." "Anything at all," Deborah echoed. "We know how hard these things can be." There was a pause, a meaningful one, the kind that says we didn't come here just for the grieving. Karen smiled, tight, bright, like a crocodile in a church dress. "Speaking of which, we did want to mention just a tiny thing. The fence, the side fence." I blinked. "The fence?" "Yes, dear." Karen's voice took on a sing-song tone, like she was telling me the grocery store was out of kale. "It seems it's been stained." Incorrectly, Deborah produced a piece of paper from her massive coach bag, like it was a divine scroll. As per HOA guideline 17C subsection B, all fences must be stained using Sherwin-Williams cedar gold. 2047. She handed me the notice. The letters were bold. There were bullet points. It might as well have been a death warrant. "Your fence," Karen said gently, "is stained in chestnut ember. It's quite a difference. We checked in daylight." "Twice," Deborah added helpfully. And unfortunately, Karen continued, "Non-compliance fines do begin at $200 per day." I stared at them. I blinked once, twice. Somewhere in my brain a fuse blew. A tiny man in a hard hat screamed, "Abandoned ship!" and jumped off a neuron. "My mom just died 4 days ago." "Oh, absolutely," Deborah said quickly. And again, "We are so sorry." "So sorry," Karen echoed. "But it's really more of a community issue at this point," Deborah said. "You understand." "Oh," I said. "Of course." They both smiled in relief. Karen patted my arm, like I'd just been promoted to grieving widow-in-chief. "Wonderful. We'll expect that taken care of by the weekend. They turned, satisfied, and began the clack, clack, clack back down the driveway. I stared at the paper in my hand. $200 per day. Chestnut Ember. And that's when I knew. They had to pay. I didn't mean in the mafia way. I wasn't about to become a garage-dwelling vigilante. But grief is a strange thing. It seeps into the corners of your mind and sticks there like duct tape over a smoke alarm. You want to scream, cry, throw a flaming bag of dog crap at the moon. But instead, sometimes, you make a spreadsheet, and mine was labeled Petty Vengeance. 2025. I went inside, found Mom's old laptop, still logged into Facebook, and got to work. In the haze of sadness, rage, and 2 lukewarm Diet Pepsis, I signed. Karen and Deborah up for 5 pyramid scheme email lists, including one called Candle Moms, a Doomsday Prepper newsletter, a free goat-owning webinar, a lifetime subscription to Clown Facts Monthly, and every telemarketing list that even remotely sounded like it originated from a van outside of Reno. I even added them to a group called Flat Earth Gardeners of the Midwest. Don't ask me how I found it. Grief gives you powers. When I was done, I sat back, staring at the glowing screen. It wasn't justice. It wasn't healing. But it was something. Outside, the sky darkened. The wind kicked up a little. The garage door creaked. And I remembered the VHS tape. Do not watch until after my death. I looked at it. It looked back. The fence could wait. I didn't own a VCR. Because of course I didn't. It was 2025, not 1993. The closest I'd come to magnetic tape lately was when I found Mom's old Spice Girls cassette, jammed in the glove box of her Buick. But there it was, staring at me from the workbench like a relic from another life. Faded label, shaky handwriting, do not watch until after my death. It felt like a joke, a dramatic flourish from a woman who used to whisper, your birth chart's rising sign is Scorpio, so just be careful around full moons after 2 glasses of rosé. But knowing her, it could just as easily be a heartfelt message, or a conspiracy, theory, or her password list. I stood there a moment longer, then muttered, well, screw it, and started Googling. 15 minutes and a Craigslist meetup later, I was the proud new owner of a VCR that smelled faintly of cat pee and nostalgia. The guy who sold it to me said his name was TJ, and that he'd only used it for anime and court footage. I didn't ask questions. Back at the house, I popped the tape into the player like I was about to summon a demon, which, given my luck so far, felt entirely possible. The screen flickered, static, a few crackles, then my mom, sitting in her old recliner wearing her "Don't ask me, ask my cat" sweatshirt, looking straight into the camera like she knew I'd be watching, while surrounded by grief, sweat, and HOA-induced bloodlust. Well, she said, if you're seeing this, I'm probably dead. She paused, squinted. Or you've ignored my very clear instructions and are watching this prematurely, in which case, shame on you. But mostly likely, I've kicked the bucket. Bummer, she smiled. That smile, slightly lopsided, a little sad, like she knew this was the only way she'd get the last word. I didn't want to leave you with a mountain of junk and a pile of questions, but here we are. I'm sorry, and I love you so much. I choked a little. Damn her. Anyway, she continued, I'm not going to do the dramatic "my final message" thing. That's not my style. But there is something I need to tell you. She reached off camera and pulled out a folder, thick, red, labeled, for the weird shit. I was going to burn this, but then I thought, Let her deal with it. She laughed. So if you're up for a little mystery, or just extremely bored, you'll find this folder in the garage, behind the old bowling trophies. Yes, I still have those. No, I never returned the shoes. Then she leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a mock conspiratorial whisper. And if you see Karen and Deborah, tell them I said they can suck it. Cedar gold, my ass. The screen crackled. Cut to static. I didn't move for a while. I just sat there, blinking at the TV like it might cough up another ghost. Then I stood up, walked back to the garage, and began moving things with the desperation of a raccoon on Red Bull. Eventually, behind 3 bowling trophies, including one labeled Gutter Queen 2002, I found it, the folder. It was heavier than I expected. Inside there were pages of notes, photocopies, a few Polaroids, a diagram of the backyard with strange little X's marked under the tree, a note paper clipped to the top, in my mom's handwriting. If something happens to me and it doesn't involve bacon grease or a freak yoga accident, open this and trust no one. Except the cat. He knows things. I sat down on a dusty lawn chair and started flipping through. Page 1 was a letter, dated 3 years ago. It said, "They're watching the house. I don't know why, but they always come around 3 p.m. They're not with the HOA. I think the HOA is just a distraction." Oh, good. Mum was either deep in some paranoid fantasy or onto something. The pages got weirder. Names circled. Phone numbers. Notes like, "Do not trust Sandra. Her garden gnomes have cameras." And the church bulletin is coded. Probably just bingo. Probably. I wanted to laugh. I really did. Except I remembered something. 3 months ago, when I'd come to visit, she told me she'd installed noise-cancelling pane in the guest bedroom. I'd thought it was just a euphemism for, "I can hear you crying in there. Please stop watching sad documentaries at 2 a.m. But now, I wasn't so sure. Then I turned the page and found a photo of Karen, standing in front of Mom's house, holding a clipboard. Behind her, Deborah, holding what looked suspiciously like a walkie-talkie. It was dated August 3rd, the day before Mom died. I froze. No, this was ridiculous. This was grief turning into delusion. My mom was many things. A little kooky, sure. But she wasn't Miss Marple with a head injury. Except, why were they there the day before? And why did I feel a sudden, inexplicable urge to check under the azalea bushes? Suddenly my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered on instinct. A voice. Metallic. Distant. Stop looking. Click. Deadline. I sat there in silence. Folder on my lap. The garage suddenly feeling 10 degrees colder. And then I heard it. The clack, clack, clack of kitten heels on pavement. They were back. The sound of kitten heels had never triggered such visceral panic before. I jumped like a raccoon caught in a fridge, nearly knocking over the lawn chair and the entire folder of weird mom secrets. I scrambled to gather the pages, shoving them back inside. Just as the garage door creaked open, Karen stood there, framed by daylight like the angel of passive-aggressive doom. Behind her, Deborah, her bob cut swaying slightly in the breeze, like it had something to say. "Oh, you're still here," Karen said brightly, as if I wasn't currently sitting among the ashes of my dead mother's paranoia journal and one very haunted VHS tape. Deborah peeked over Karen's shoulder. "Just wanted to check in, see how you're doing, and if you've had a chance to address the fence issue." I stared at them. Something inside me shifted. It wasn't grief or rage. It was something new. Clarity. Because suddenly, Everything about them made sense. The clipboard surveillance, the mysterious 3 p.m. patrols, the walkie-talkies, for God's sake. This wasn't just suburban tyranny. This was something else. Oh, the fence, I said sweetly, stepping forward. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. Karen lit up. Wonderful. We can recommend a local contractor. He works almost exclusively in cedar gold, so you know you'll be in compliance. Oh, I'm not going to stain it, I said. I'm going to burn it. Their smiles froze. Deborah tilted her head. I'm sorry. I'm going to soak the fence in expired tiki torch fluid and set it on fire while playing Highway to Hell on loop, I said calmly. Maybe even stream it. I think my mom would have liked that. Karen blinked. I don't think that's within regulation, and neither is spying, I said, stepping closer now, or showing up the day before someone dies and pretending it was about hedge height, when really you were poking around the backyard for, I don't know, hidden alien relics, secret gnome technology. Please do tell. There was a flicker, just for a second, in Karen's eye, something like panic, or guilt, or recognition. We don't know what you're talking about, Deborah said quickly. We were just being good neighbors. You had a walkie-talkie, I said. In the suburbs. Who were you talking to? The feds? The underground lawn care? Resistance? Deborah's hand twitched toward her purse. I took a step back. Leave, I said. Right now, or I'll send the HOA your search history. That did it. They turned without another word, retreating in fast, clack, 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 unison. I watched them until they disappeared down the driveway, practically speed-walking like the judgmental escapees from a Land's End catalog. And then I exhaled. I went back into the house, locked every door, and sat at the kitchen table with the folder. All right, Mom, let's see just how deep this rabbit hole goes. The next few hours were a whirlwind of paranoia-fueled research, caffeine, and the slow realization that my mother had either uncovered a suburban conspiracy ring, or she had finally cracked after one too many book club betrayals. There were notes about buried equipment in the Greenbelt, diagrams of HOA meeting seating, charts, a list titled Possible Aliases for Karen, including Dr. Fenceworth and Agent Cedar. Okay, that one made me snort, but tucked between the ramblings, there were real things. Copies of city council correspondence that had mysteriously vanished from public record. A letter addressed to my mother from a GR, warning her to stay out of the storm drains after dusk, and taped to the back of a paper titled Top Secret. Trimming the truth was a USB stick. I stared at it like it might explode, plugging it into her ancient laptop. I found a single file, a video. It opened with grainy security footage of a community meeting in the rec center. Karen and Deborah were at the front, flanked by 4 people I didn't recognize, all dressed in matching taupe outfits, like some sort of neutral-toned cult. A man stood up to speak. I don't understand. Why are we raising the fines again? Karen smiled. Control, she said. Excuse me? The illusion of order, Deborah added. It keeps them docile. Someone laughed nervously. Karen leaned forward. Do you want them asking questions? She said. Do you want them wondering why streetlight Natchar 14 flickers at exactly 2:37 a.m. every night? Or what's under the old pool foundation? Dead silence. Then, static. The file cut out. I sat back, heart racing. This wasn't HOA madness. This was something deeper, something strange, and my mother had known. Maybe even fought them, in her own weird way, with folders and paranoia and secret VHS tapes, labeled like an Indiana Jones sequel. And now it was my turn. I didn't stain the fence. I painted it black. Every board, every slat, like a suburban war flag. 2 days later, a fine appeared, taped to the door. I mailed it back in an envelope stuffed with glitter, a drawing of a goat, and a handwritten note that said, "Cedar Gold can kiss my cedar ass." Karen hasn't come back since. But the neighborhood's quieter now, like it knows something's changed. Every so often I still find something, tucked away in my mom's things. A receipt for 10 bags of sand. A blueprint for a community center basement that doesn't exist. A hand-drawn map of which neighbors blink too slowly. It's absurd. It's insane. But it's also oddly comforting because she wasn't crazy. Or at least, she wasn't only crazy, she was watching, paying attention, fighting back. And now, so am I. The grief still comes in waves, sharp, sneaky ones that hit during commercials or in the detergent aisle. But it's mixed now with laughter, mystery, and a sense that I inherited more than just her bad knees and her spice rack full of expired paprika. I inherited her war, and weirdly, I think she'd be proud. Also, Karen is apparently on a no-fly list now. I may have submitted her name to an international goat smuggling ring. Oops!